back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Boom. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my Mcfarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will take a look at the BvS wave release of Wonder Woman. Now, of course, we have had multiple releases of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, going all the way back, I can even remember, to circa 2020, finding her in stores for the first time. Now, we have come a long way from that time, the first year with Mcfarlane. So we're going to go ahead and, take the Wayback Time Machine and compare those first releases to this most recent release of the live action Wonder Woman. Now, another thing I want to do in this video is I want to take a look at the rest of this recent BvS wave. We're talking about 2-packs. We're talking about Armored Batman. So we'll take a quick look at those as well. And that will help me prep for my top 10 live action figures from Mcfarlane for 2024, which I'll be working on pretty soon. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, she does look pretty formidable in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at her. But first, she does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, of course, these are not always needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. She also comes with her data file card. On the front, you do have an image from Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. Now, there is slight variations in the costumes that were used for live action. I think in the 1984 movie, she had a more colorful, more vibrant color scheme to her costume, while in this movie, it was a little bit darker, a little bit more grim color scheme. And basically, that opens you up to having your own choice of what colors you prefer. So that is always awesome. On the back, you do have some information. I will hold on to that. She does come with some accessories. She does finally come with her sword. Now, in all the previous releases, she never came with a sword. And it is very interesting that she finally comes with it. Now, there's multiple versions of the sword as well. And one thing I'll say, the colors are very nice and vibrant. The sculpt is, perfect, but it does seem a little bit large, especially for her. But we'll take a closer look at that here coming up soon. She also finally gets her shield that coincides with her version in the films. And now I think there are multiple shields as well, but they did a really awesome job of sculpting out this shield. It even has that eagle emblem on the front. Even the sword matches the eagle emblem, which I thought was a very interesting little detail. And on the back, you have a very nicely sculpted harness, which of course is to slide over her arm so that she can wield her shield. So pretty nice for what it is. And although it's large as well, it's not really as off-putting as the sword is. As I said, we'll take a look at that later on. And then the last thing she comes with is one of these little rolled up lassos. Now, I have tons of these from all of the Wonder Woman that I have bought previously. Now, they do come in different color tones of gold. Some are a little bit darker, this one being a very vibrant gold. So that is very nice. We'll add that to the collection. Now let's go ahead and take a quick closer look at her. Now, this should be the best of all the previous releases of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman we have received. Now let's directly look at her first impressions. Finally, they got that shape correctly. I feel like the aesthetics are pretty close. Now, I'm not so sure Gal's legs are that muscular. I mean, she definitely has toned legs. I'm not going to say she doesn't. These do seem a little bit more muscular than hers, but definitely not hating it. I am enjoying those thick thighs. One of my favorite things in life. Now, aside from that, the costume is very much the same as all the other versions. The only differences, of course, are the tones, because, of course, all these production runs were different. So they all had different armor color, different silvers, different golds, different skin tone, even. So for sure, this will be its own entity, and you'll be able to use it any way you prefer in a BvS setup or in a 84 Wonder Woman setup. It's just up to you what you want to do. Taking a look at the head sculpt. Now, it's been a lot of trial and error from Mcfarlane to get her visage down correctly, but this is very much the closest I have seen to recreating Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. Great head sculpt. The color shade is a little bit off. The skin tone of the face is a little bit off from the body. The body being a little bit more of a paler skin tone, but that doesn't bother me at all. It still looks pretty good. Now, she does have a little bit of that square jawed face, which it is representative of some of the images from the film. I remember sometimes it would make her look very, a little bit more masculine, like with the square jaw. And a lot of times you would see her and she would look very feminine, very beautiful, with a lot more softer features, but that of course could be the, different shots, different angles, different cameras. But all in all, this is a very nice representation of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. So very happy with it. Now the articulation is the same. We've seen it a lot of times before, so I won't, bother you with that. But she does look very good for a Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. Now, once again, as I said, you can put the sword in her hand, and it does look rather large. It even barely fits into her hand. Once we start comparing with the older releases, you'll see what I did and the differences in the size. Now, of course, the first release of Wonder Woman was that hot dog leg Wonder Woman that a lot of people like definitely were not fans of. Everything was pretty good. The face is close, but you could see where I said that they had a lot more feminine tones to her face. And of course, those legs. I still own those legs. They do very much look like weenies. They have absolutely zero muscle tone. And this made her very tall. I think she was even taller than the Batfleck figure. So very awkward the way they did her legs. But another thing you must remember that I've mentioned before, this was the first run of Mcfarlane figures. So there's definitely going to be some growing pains. You have to figure out what works for you and what you're trying to go for. Now, I customized that first rendition of Gal Gadot. I shortened her legs to make her, a little bit shorter and to not see so much of those long limbs that they gave us. Now, I could always switch back to her old legs, but this for me for a long time was my quintessential Gal Gadot. Now, I ended up ordering some Wonder Woman figures from Mattel, not necessarily to have the figures, but to have the sword and the shield. Now, I did do this twice because I wanted to hold on to these because I knew in the future I would probably be using them. And I found it very strange that Mcfarlane never gave her her weaponry. So I was glad to buy these Mattel figures online for, I think, for like 10, maybe $15 at the most, when basically all I wanted was the weapons. Now, I do want to talk about the golden armored Wonder Woman, which was one that I did find in stores. This was something like you're kind of wondering what McFarlane's going to do with the line. And I have to be honest, at first, I wasn't the biggest fan of this golden armor Wonder Woman. But the more I had her in my collection, the more I saw what other companies were doing with this same version of her, I really appreciated the $20 Mcfarlane version of her. There's great detailed sculpt on this. The wings, although they could have been articulated a little bit more, they have enough articulation to allow you to pose her in flying poses. And I'm just a big fan of this retro Mcfarlane release, the Golden Armored Wonder Woman. Now jump a little bit more forward in time, and we ended up getting the Shazam Fury of the Gods Wonder Woman. Now this was pretty interesting because although they did fix parts of her body, like the legs, and changed up the tones of the colors a little bit, they gave her a head without her tiara. Now, the tiara was loose in the package because it was an accessory, but it kind of made it weird because she wasn't wearing it in the figure. Now, I know some people, because it was a different face sculpt, they cut the tiara or glued it onto her forehead, but I had a different idea. Always wanted a golden armor Wonder Woman without the helmet, and one thing that made it look weird was if you were to have this with the tiara on. So this was a perfect opportunity to do a custom where I had my golden armored Wonder Woman without the helmet, but also without the tiara. And I was always happy with this little head swap that I did. She is a nice little gem in my collection. Now, what I ended up doing with the body of the Fury of the Gods Wonder Woman was adding my extra Gal Gadot head sculpt from the original release. Now, instead of coloring her hair dark like I did in the first custom, I just left this one with the lighter, almost auburn hair color, and I thought this worked even better with this body. So after this was my go-to Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. I added the weapons that I had bought before from the Mattel Wonder Woman, and I used her a lot in figure photography and on my BvS shelf. And now that brings us into this Wonder Woman. Now, if you stack her up with the previous two, you can see that my first custom was rather short. My next custom, although a little bit taller, does look more like she did in the films. And of course, now we have this pretty much definitive version of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. Now, comparing the weapons, you can see the difference in size. One sword is huge, and one sword is, not so big, but it does fit with her a little bit better. Now, time will tell what weapons I decide to use with her because I did come to find out over the course of this review that I didn't mind the sword so much. The colors really pop, and I guess for what it is, it does go with her. So we'll see in the future how that ends up playing out. But really happy with this Wonder Woman. The shield is a big positive of this release. It just goes with her so well, and she looks so good with it. Add the sword, and it just finishes it off. Now, you can add the lasso to her little loop, but that does get a little bit tedious because it has a tendency to fall off. But you can add all of these little details, all of the accessories to her, and she is a great release for your cinematic DC universe. Now, I did want to start popping open a lot of the 2 packs that I have picked up. I did end up picking up the Armored Batman. I did get the regular and the platinum version. But what I really wanted was that spear. Luckily, I did end up finding the Superman and Doomsday 2 pack. Now, I have them right here. I won't really bring them out because it will make it a little bit busy up here. But the good thing about that 2 pack is that it came with the Kryptonite Spear. Now, wasn't a big fan of the paint that they used on it. It kind of looked like a green marshmallow or something like that. So I did, try and spruce it up a little bit, give it a green metallic paint spray, and then added some brushed highlights of a different green metallic that I have just to give it some depth. Now, while I do enjoy it a lot more, I really wish they would have went with a more transparent plastic or like a crystal green plastic. It's fine for what it is, but in the future, I may end up, either looking for one online to buy or, making my own. You never know what I'll do. But for right now, I am having fun with that spear, especially once I painted it up. It does work pretty well. Now that means I can keep my Platinum Edition Armored Batman in package, but I did open up the standard, and now I have the two versions, the regular version and the one where he has battle damage to his helmet. So pretty happy with those purchases. Now a big reason why I bought that 2-pack of the Nightmare Batman and the Armored Batman was for the weapons. Now I do really enjoy this Nightmare Batman. Really liked adding him to the collection. Now I have the gun that goes with him, and I have the assault rifle that goes with the other version of Nightmare Batman, where he has the baklava, covering his face. So I also have that version as well. Completing my Nightmare Batman setup. You also get the grenade launcher, which was another plus. A bunch of little accessories that are always appreciated to add to the armory. Now, of course, I like using my murdered out BvS Batman to go with Wonder Woman, as well as the Superman that came in the Doomsday 2-pack. Now, this 2-pack, the big reason I wanted it was for the Kryptonite Spear, but if you look at the Doomsday, he's not the greatest mega fig. I mean, the sculpt work is out of this world. The textures that they added, the spikes and the boniness of it is just awesome. But the execution leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, the shoulders really needed that ring, the shoulder ring that Mcfarlane uses to cover up the gap. And of course, the crotch piece isn't really the best. Now, I could try and recut it and shape it to make it look a little bit more streamlined and give it a black wash to bring out a lot of that sculpt, but we shall see in the future. Now, of course, the Superman is really nice to have, especially with the wired cape, which is always a great addition. They also did a wired cloth cape on the Armored Batman, but I had talked about this in my top 20 video, and the way they fray it to make it look worn and stuff isn't the best. I probably would have preferred a soft rubber on the Armored Batman that could have the rips and the holes in it and the battle damage. And then this cloth cape for the Superman. So I might have preferred a plastic cape on that one, but I do love this cloth cape on this BvS Superman. Now, of course, I have my original release, the one with the plastic cape. I did a little bit of touch-up paint on the face, and of course, I added all of the metallic blue details to the costume. So that is still one of my favorite Cavill Superman figures. And the problem with this cape, with this new cloth cape, is that it doesn't tie into the costume the way it should. It should actually tie in here, like above the collarbones, and they tied it in under the neck plug, which is something that Mcfarlane does. Now, I have an idea that you could remove this, modify it, drill some holes, and then plug it in to where it should be if it wants to be screen accurate. Not sure if I'm going to do that, but it is a possibility that I could do in the future. But anyways, guys, that's all of my BvS figures that I picked up. That is our new Gal Gadot Wonder Woman. Now, it's come leaps and miles above what we received in the first release to what we now have in this newest release from Mcfarlane. I'm very happy with her. Gonna have a lot of fun posing her, doing some displays and some figure photography. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.